Today, it's generally accepted by people who have played it that Luigi's Mansion is a great and unique video game that has earned its place in history. But it was a little bit harder to see that when it actually came out. You have to remember that 2001 was stacked with bombastic heavy hitters like Grand Theft Auto 3, Halo 1, and Metal Gear Solid 2. So any game that came out that year that wasn't on that level, anything that was just kind of a gem or a weird work of art, generally just looked quaint in comparison. And while I personally would gladly play Pikmin or Luigi's Mansion again before ever revisiting 2001's Liberty City with the clunky ass Claude controls, understanding the historical context in which Luigi's Mansion exists makes its less than phenomenal reception at the time make a lot more sense. It also certainly didn't help that the GameCube didn't have a big dog Mario title at launch like its predecessors all did, so when they drop a game about his bitch-ass brother who doesn't even smoke, a game in which you don't even stomp Koopas, it definitely had to sting just a little. But there were some genuinely impressive things about the game back then. The lighting, the dust effects, cloth physics, reflections, the doorknobs. There are probably more polygons in this doorknob alone than every single Mario 64 display list actor combined. When we talk about this game, it seems like nothing but sunshine and daisies and peaches and Rosalina, I don't know. But the point is, everybody loves Luigi's Mansion now, alright? The atmosphere, the exploration, the creative gameplay, the world building, small details, secrets the game never tells you, and excellent replayability. It has a lot going for it, to say the least. That being said, it's definitely not a perfect game. There are certainly some bumps in the road, and when you've played the game as many times as I have, you might have some idea of what I'm talking about. Today, we have a game called Luigi's Mansion Premium Deluxe. This is a mod that adds a whole bunch of features to Luigi's Mansion to make it more deluxe-y. These things range from quality of life improvements to difficulty enhancements to even littler cosmetic things. It just might be the best way to play. The first and most important new feature of this game is the mirror mode, which flips the entire mansion horizontally. This is a little thing that goes a long way. There are also other difficulty options that bring in the late game ghosts to the earlier areas. On top of this, there's also a different lighting setup that's aggressively more dark and glowy. This changes the atmosphere by a lot. Some of these things were actually features of the PAL version of the game that were absent from the North American versions for one reason or another. So the option of choosing between all these things essentially makes this the definitive edition. The Hidden Mansion contains more frighteningly designed ghosts, and even one that wasn't in any version of the original, the Chef Ghost. Let me just say somebody cooked here, if you know what I mean. There is one change to the mansion itself, which is that there is now a door on the second floor, which allows you to instantly travel between the foyer right to Area 3. This is a godsend, because in the original, you usually had to take a long-ass detour. It cuts down on extra travel time substantially. I mean, you gotta remember, in a game this brief, every second matters. Speaking of which, this mod contains a phenomenal quality of life change, which is the ability to skip all the phone calls and pickup animations, pretty much all the stuff that used to interrupt the gameplay. You can even skip all the lengthy text exchanges and the game badgering you to save every time you catch a boo. I remember in the original game, whenever this stuff would happen, my thumb would just be on the A button like a jackhammer, like, yeah, I get it. Please let me play the game again, Miyamoto. I am dying. Remember the fortune teller where you'd have to show her 5 objects one at a time, and every single time you did, she dumped the longest passage of dialogue on you at once? Well, in this mod, you show up to her with all 5 objects in hand, it skips all the dialogue at once, and you can just rock and roll from there. I especially love how there's no cutscene for picking up the big shiny jewels. It was always a big pain in the ass in the original, when you'd open a chest and it'd spit out a bunch of bills and coins next to some jewels, and if you accidentally touched the jewels first, the coins would start despawning. Like, did they really not foresee that being a problem? What were they thinking? This is incredible for replayability because it's just go, 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 go. If you played the game a bunch before, this is gonna feel like a dream. Sometimes you're not fully conscious of just how frequently these games grind the action to a halt until you have the option of skipping it. Like, including the credits and hunting for all the money and jewels like I did, I blew through the entire game in under 3 hours. The original game usually takes me a little over 4. That's how frequently the original game yanks your chain. It has a whole hour's worth of interruptions at least, which is pretty substantial for a game that's this brief to begin begin with. One of my favorite new fun features is the Game Boy Horror doubling as a first-person camera. People who are experts on Luigi's Mansion's development may recall that this was originally a feature that was supposed to be in the game, but was cut before release. If I had to guess why they cut it, I imagine it was a performance issue, considering it would require them to render the same scene twice at different angles at all times, which I can only imagine is computationally expensive, especially for such an early title. There are a lot of beta elements brought back as optional toggles, like designs for chest and the vacuum cleaner, but also the vacuum meter system where if you sustain use too long, it blows up and hurts you. Doing an entire playthrough with this feature turned on, I can definitely see why they removed it, but it's really cool to have that as an option. My favorite new detail though is Egad's hut, which you can visit at certain intervals. As you progress through the game, he accumulates new set pieces taken from the areas you've been to, which adds tremendously to the sense of progression. That's just a very smart idea. I played through the original Luigi's Mansion so many times now that I know it like the back of my hand, and despite that fact, playing through Premium Deluxe felt like a fresh experience. It's a much brisker game, there's so much to discover, and it's a hugely passionate love letter to the original. And the best part is, as far as I know, it's still getting updated. If you're a fan of Luigi's Mansion, there's really no reason not to play this. I'm gonna let you go for now so you can get on that, but remember to come back tomorrow because we got another game on the horizon. But for now, Merry Christmas, cousins!